Kerry Max Cook case. So, Kerry Max Cook was arrested at like the age of 20, falsely accused of murdering a woman brutally, and went to Texas's death row. He then was represented by the Innocence Project and took an Alfred plea, which means that
you say you're guilty. Just like Damien Eccles and the West Memphis Three. They are guilty of the crime. And then you come back about proving somebody's innocence, but he said he was guilty. That's what the Alfred plea is. But at any rate, the Innocence Project definitely can help you if you're innocent. That's the problem. We're not talking about this case down here that the Innocence Project has helped. Right now, the Innocence Project is drawing on Darlie's case because it's one of the bigger cases on YouTube, and the Scott Peterson case because it's one of the bigger cases being talked about. It gets them funding, no matter they get off death row or not. Barry Schreck is the founder of it, and he didn't want nothing to do with Darlie for the Texas Innocence Project.
Basically have to say, yeah, I committed the crime and I'm guilty, but they'll let you out of prison.
I committed the crime, but I'm guilty, but they'll let you out of prison. Now, let's go back to where, you claimed that she was offered a deal, right? She said her life isn't worth living if she has to admit she killed her children. That sink in just a little bit. And again, I will tell you, the Innocence Project can help you if you're actually innocent. And this man was actually innocent. If you read his story.
And when I update you on this story, you'll know why the Innocence Project needed him out of prison so badly. But when I was studying while I've been studying the case and getting it ready for you guys, I heard Kerry Max say that once the DA started, oh my gosh, I love this. Once the DA started signing things and working with the Innocence Project, things really started happening for him.
Well, the DA's office has already looked over her case. Craig Watkins was one of the best district attorneys ever. Do you think that they're looking to find Darlie innocent?
What do you guys think about that one? So that's really exciting to know because right now in the Darlie Routier case, she's being represented by not only the Dallas DA.
She's not being represented by the Dallas DA. She's not being represented by them. The Dallas DA is going to oversee this testing to be sure there isn't any crap going on with the testing. But she's not being represented by them.
Or the integrity unit inside the Dallas DA. But
she is not being represented by the crime integrity unit. Her crime is being researched by the crime integrity unit. Her conviction is being researched. They're looking at her case, but they are not representing her.
She also has the Innocence Project on her side. So, things are happening in this case, in the Darlie Routier case.
This isn't the first time. But go ahead. This isn't the first time they've tested stuff. It always points back at Darlie.
Today, Darlie had a hearing to see if they could do DNA testing on a piece of evidence.
With the female judge, Audra Riley. And if you look at her background, she's a no-nonsense judge. I think if the case would go in front, the case the way it was, would go in front of this judge, we'd have a conviction.
Piece of evidence is State Exhibit 60, and it is the sock that was found down the alley.
They just go on so smooth.
You guys want the link to this? I love the packaging. I love the marketing. So cute, right? Okay, so while in this hearing today, they decided that they were going to take evidence off of the sock or do clippings, and they normally put those clippings into vials, and then they put them in the oh my gosh, I just lost the word for it. Centrifuge, and that will extract any DNA. And one of the part of the contract that the Innocence Project and the Dallas DA signed was stating that both parties have to be there when they test this evidence.
Right, and that's when you're going to have a problem. All right? Now, mark my words on this. What you're going to have is Darlie's attorney's not going to be able to make it once. Then the Innocence Project isn't going to be able to make it once. And that gives them more time to do some things, right? But what you're going to have is these people not being able to collaborate at the same time. CIU wants to be there to be sure that the test leads back to where they put her in. They want to be sure nothing's tampered with. Because, we had Darlie go in to the Lou Sterrett justice system with her attorney and a polygraph examiner, and the test came up inconclusive is the word I think they used. So that we're not going to have any more of that type of crap. She failed that polygraph test. And the only ones that know it is her attorney, and the person that gave the test, because they didn't have other people in there to supervise.
So that means that...
Love this color too. I mean, they're all very similar, but they go on
so smooth and they feel so good. Okay, so
men are not going to follow your true crime channel if you're doing makeup on it.
SOC is now being sent to a private lab, and somebody from the Innocence Project and somebody from the Dallas DA has to be at both.
It's not a private lab. It's UNT Technologies. It's University of Texas type of deal.
Or both of them have to be there when results are read, when testing goes through, so that there's basically a consultant, if you want to say, for both sides.
So there's no inconclusive, I think they said, results.
The state and the defense. So the defense will have the Innocence Project, and the state will obviously put somebody from the Dallas DA, send them to the lab. Sounds a little darker.
You know what Dallas could do if they really wanted to do, because we saw what they did in '63 to Lee Harvey Oswald. They had an identification. If you listen to the Dallas broadcast of the day of November 22, 1963, if you listen to the police broadcast, which I have a clip of it if you want me to play it out, but they had, within 15 minutes of Kennedy's assassination, they had Lee Harvey Oswald's description of what these police should be looking for. A thin man, about 5'7", short dark hair. It looked, where did they get the description of him? They didn't even know he was missing from the building until, 1 o'clock. But they had a description of him. So if Dallas wants to put somebody in, they can make up shit. And they haven't made up shit in Darlie's case at all. Like Oswald's prints were never on that rifle. They said his palm print was on that rifle. Dallas opened up their morgue to the FBI when Oswald was laying there, and they put his print on that fucking rifle. We know that now. So if Dallas wanted to be scandalous, she's in there based on evidence. She's not in there based on, we need to set Lee Harvey Oswald up so the whole world doesn't know that our government conspired to kill their president.
But that's exciting news for several reasons. First of all, it means that the Dallas DA is working with Darlie's team, and they're working with the Innocence Project.
They're not working with them. They're not working with them. They're allowing them to go through the evidence, and if they find something that doesn't look right, the defense, then they'll go there from there. And I think that people on death row should get this kind of testing. I really do. I think that, that if we're going to put somebody in the ground, we need to be sure. Darlie's been given more chances than anybody else as far as DNA testing. Right now, she is the inmate that's had the most DNA testing done on death row since Texas death row was open. And it always points back to Darlie.
And as I referred to in the Kerry Max Cook case, once the Dallas DA started working with the Innocence Project, stuff started happening. Stuff started getting through.
Now, again, in the Kerry Cook case, he had somebody that actually spoke up and said, let me find that guy's name real quick. Now, Cook's conviction was based largely on witness testimony, that they saw him peering in the windows of this young lady and stuff like that. Another person said that they hadn't found her he had been having sex with her for weeks, right? Well, when the Texas Court of Appeals looked into his case, as they were ordered to by the United States Supreme Court, ordered them to take a look at his case. That's where the ball got rolling. He had his lawyers write to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered Texas Court of Criminal Appeals to take a look at his case. So they took a look at it, and after 3 years of them taking a look at it, they did grant him a new trial. The first trial was a mistrial on his new trial, right, back in 94. But the second one, he was convicted again based on these witness statements against him. And 2 years after that, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals looked into his case because of Centurion Ministries. We're finding that these people are now saying, yeah, we lied. He didn't do this. He didn't go in there. He never told me he was having sex with her for weeks. So they took a look at it again. And there was some DNA testing that was done that also proved that he was innocent. But mostly he was convicted on people saying that he was bragging about it, that he was having sex with her body, that he was peering in her windows. But it was literally the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals that took a look because of Centurion Ministries, right? So he got out because he was actually innocent and he could prove it. That was at Article 64, Texas law, Chapter 64. Darlie has to prove actual innocence. So if they go out there, let me let her talk for a minute.
Through. So this is really exciting. I know that Darlie's attorneys flew down for this, and we've all been waiting for it for a few months now for her to have this hearing to see if they were going to go ahead and test.
Sully doesn't realize how many times we've been told by the family and supporters, oh, we've got new evidence. Oh, we've got it. She'll be home for Christmas. When I switched over to the support side, hell, it was probably the non-support side. I don't know. But I've been hearing this. Yeah, she'll be out by January 2012. She'll be out by 2014. Next year, we're going to show you. Oh, we've got a lot of good things going on. Yep, you just watch. You're going to have to apologize. We've been hearing this for years. And all this testing she gets back always goes back to her. It always does. Now, Cook's case wasn't like Darlie's at all. I mean, because he was actually innocent. And in fact, they know who did it. His name is James Mayfield. He is the boyfriend, Linda Jo Edwards. And James Mayfield had actually lied in the case before. And now he was saying that he lied. But Cook brought up, he had a whole lot of support. He even had celebrities on it. Madonna made a video about him. He had, in the courtroom, he had famous exonerees like Michael Morton, Billy Smith, A.B. Butler, 3 other exonerees that were there with him, to oversee this whole court thing. But he actually made a no contest plea, not an Alford. So I'll take back my Alford stuff back. I did some research. I found some paperwork, and I was looking at it. It was a no contest plea. And I will note that the defense said that they will take back their claims of prosecutorial misconduct if he was exonerated. And they did take back their claims. Now they're saying there was no prosecutorial misconduct. And keep in mind, at this court hearing was the founder of the National, the Innocent Projects of Texas was there. And they would not touch Darlie's case for anything. Her own state would not touch her case. The National Innocence Project, I believe her name was Nina Morrison, from the National Innocence Project of Texas, or Innocence Project. So just keep in mind, the Innocence Project of Texas would not touch Darlie's case. As much as we supporters pestered them, they would not touch it for nothing. So what you have here is a man who is actually innocent. He wasn't even going just for the exoneration. He wanted to prove actual innocence so he could collect money. He wasn't happy with just exoneration. But the thing is, when he was on death row, he was raped over and over again. He tried to kill himself. Well, he cut his penis off, and they had to reattach it. And, he got raped over and over and over again. He was bisexual. Some doctor came in and said that, the profile of this person would be a homosexual person. He did this to this woman. They cut her vagina out. But there were witnesses that saw Mayfield going at that apartment, and they weren't allowed to bring it at court. Mayfield is the victim's boyfriend. Now the thing that really convicted him is his fingerprint was found on her porch door. But he admitted, he had two witnesses saying that this woman, Edwards, she was really wanting Mayfield back, and she was chased after him. He left her. He admitted that she would undress in front of her window, and him and his two nephews stood there watching. This is how his fingerprint got in there. But the bottom line is this. He was innocent, and DNA, the witnesses taking back their statements that convicted him, and 22 years after the crime, they found semen on the lady's underwear. And they did tests on it. And now Mayfield had said he had not been in with her for weeks, but it was his semen on there. And they retested it, and it was his semen on there. So what you have here is a man who is actually innocent. And it wasn't the Innocence Project of New York that picked him up. It was his own letter to Centurion Ministries. And then the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. They were like, hey, this case isn't right. But I'm telling you, Darlie's case has got nothing to do with this case. None. Because he was actually innocent. And that's what Darlie needs to prove, is actual innocence. They're not going to exonerate her. She needs to prove actual innocence according to the Crime Integrity Unit. It's like, you tell us who did it or you ain't getting out. So let's say they find something on that sock. Well, first of all, you had the sock was outside. Second of all, the defense made a big deal about how it wasn't handled correctly. The prosecution can use that on now and say, well, it wasn't handled correctly like they said. The detective threw it right in the back of his car. So, if it doesn't have DNA from, Joe Blow with a criminal record on it, then she's not going to prove actual innocence. But, look at Kerry Max Cook's case. It's really interesting. You can read Texas Monthly. They got an article on him. He did attract a lot of attention. Like I said, Madonna did a short video song about him. The Kardashians were on his side because this man is obviously innocent. They had no evidence on him in the first place. None. They had more evidence on Mayfield, James Mayfield, and now to this day, everybody thinks that James Mayfield is actually the one that did it. He lived in the same apartment complex with her that when he left her. Well, they had some kind of weird name for that apartment complex, but yeah, they got the wrong person. And this guy did the fighting on his own. And he didn't want just exoneration. He wanted to prove actual innocence. You can't do that with an Alford plea. The plea was actually a no contest plea. I had to look into that after listening to what Sully said. But it's a really good case. Check it out. It's really interesting. And here he is with Robin Williams. San Francisco area. And here he sits with Susan Sarandon and Aidan Quinn. Susan Sarandon did get together with Darlie Key. They met up. She spoke. And you can hear her in one of the shows saying, this is what Susan Sarandon said. I'm going to try and do this word for word. Let me say this. Let me see. The necklace was embedded so far into her wound that they had to have an emergency surgery to get it out. That's not exactly what she said. But she was trying to tell the world that it was embedded into her wound and that they had to rush her into surgery to get that necklace out. And we know that never happened. So I really did. I mean, I sent her publicist some letters, some emails. I was trying to get her to retract that statement. But, of course, it's hard to get a hold of a celebrity. But there's pictures of Darlie Key with Susan Sarandon. And I put up a meme of, on that movie Thelma and Louise, where that T-Bird's actually going off the cliff, and I put under it Susan Sarandon after she actually studied Darlie's case. But this guy, he's actually innocent, Sully. And the Innocence Project of New York had nothing to do with him. It was the Innocence Project of Texas. Right? And the Innocence Project of Texas would not have anything to do with Darlie. And Craig Watkins from the DA, they've already upheld their conviction. But it took him 3 or 4 times to prove it. But they did it with proof. Proof.